Hello everybody. In this video tutorial, I will go over quickly the reporting services and how to create a report from scratch. What are the different components and parts and pieces of the SSRS report? So this slide that is shown here in the PowerPoint is very important. So reporting services reports are nothing but the part of the BI suite um, that the SQL Server has. And when you are talking about creating a report, um, there are five different components as part of the report. First of all, report needs data, and so you have to configure the data sources for the report. First, it just needs to you just mention in the SSRS report when you create a brand new report, you need to configure data sources first, uh, which includes the database connection and the database name and the server name and those type of things. So once you specify the data source, then you move on to the actual data side of things, and this is where you need to configure the query or write a query. You can have a stored procedure as well, or you can directly build a report on the table. In this example, we'll be working with a query. So we'll be writing the query to pull the data from various tables, yeah, for the report. Um, Third thing, the important items are the report items. These are nothing but the text box, table, sub-reports, image, graph, list, map, and gauge. These are nothing but the visual representation. So you have a data on the report, and you have some type of labels for the data as well. So you will be creating the report items, which are called report items, all these different controls. So you will need to configure that. Fourth item is if you want to format any data like date format or anything like that, you can use expressions, or you can use some of the report items text properties like text box properties and table properties, etc. And I'll show you in this example how you can leverage those to format the data on the report side. And finally, the filters. The filters are nothing but the report parameters, and these are the parameters that can limit the data that is displayed on the report. So for example, the patient list type of report, you can specify the filter as a patient ID and then work through that. So let me quickly show you how you can create the report from scratch and work through that. So first of all, you need to have the Visual Studio SSDT 2017. So most of you can find it. Even if you are using Windows 10 computer, then you can search for SSDT, or search for Visual Studio, and you should be able to see the Visual Studio desktop app. On my computer, as soon as I click here, I have Visual Studio 2017 SSDT here. So this is the one I have pinned it to the taskbar, and that's why it's showing up here. Um, so let me go and open the Visual Studio SSDT first. This is where we'll be creating all the reports. So I'm clicking there, and it will start the Visual Studio 2017. It may take a minute or two on your machine, depending on your computer speed. Okay, so as soon as it opens, first thing that you need to do is create a brand new project in the Visual Studio. So for that, you can click on File, New, and then Project. And this is the project is nothing but it's a grouping of, it's more of a matter of organizing all your reports. So project can contain multiple reports, and I'll show you how you can add multiple reports to the project. For this one, we'll select the report server project. Wizard will kick off the wizard, but we'll be using in this exercise, I'll be using report server project. And you can name it as a patient information report. And for now, you can just click OK here. And this one will create an empty project. So currently we don't have any report files here. Now, first thing we need to do is we need to add a brand new report. So what we just created is a more of a project. Project can contain one or more report. So how can we add a report? So I will right click on the reports folder and go to the add new item. And here in this window, I'll make sure the report is selected. And let's say we are creating the base patient report, patient information report. So I can name it as patient information.rdl. Now RDL is a file extension. You probably want to leave that unchanged, but you can put anything for the name. So now we will click on add. And at this point, we have an empty report here. So according to the configuration items, first of all, we need to configure data source. So I'll go and configure data source here. At this point, you need, as part of the data source, you need to mention the user ID, password, um, and connection information. So I'll click on edit. And here you can type in localhost in the server name. And second thing you can do is pick the database. Make sure you click on test connection. This connection is successful. And I'll click OK at this point. Um, at this point, our data source is configured, and I'll click OK. And I'll see the data source here created as a patient registration. So in the second step, we need to specify what our data is. And let's say we are pulling the information from patient and demographics. So what I'll do is I'll create a right click on it. You can right click on this data sets, and it will pop up this add data sets. You can select that, and in this dialog box you can specify the name or leave the names default. Make sure you select this user data set embedded in my report, and then select the data source, which is patient registration for us. Now here in the query type, I have text, and I can type in my query here. And this is my simple query. If you have a complex query, then you need to use the SQL Server Management Studio, where you can write the complex query first in the SSMS, and then you can copy. Once your query runs there, then you can copy the query to this query window here. So let me go ahead and write a query in the SSMS first. So it is still opening on my machine. So I'm just waiting for it to open. And looks like it is open. So I'll click on connect. And let's find our patient registration database. We'll see the tables. And I'll open a new query window. And here, let's say I'm picking out few fields. Select legal first name, legal last name, birth date, SSN, and prefix. From patient P, inner join, demographics, D on D dot patient ID is equal P dot patient ID. So this is my query, and let me make sure I can run it and correct any errors that you have. Oh, we don't have prefix, we have a suffix. So and make sure you include the patient ID in all your queries, okay? Because that would be the one we can use to filter and everything else. So make sure you have patient ID selected. So now my query runs and I have all the data that I need. So I'll copy it and paste it in the query window here. Then click OK. So it looks like my connection has some issues. So I need to double click there and let's see if I can connect it. Oh, so somehow my connection was changed. So I'll put it back to Windows authentication. Okay, click OK. And now I can go back here and click OK. Select the connection again. Okay, so I refresh the fields and now my field shows up here. Okay, so this is more of a patient report, right? So we will go ahead and add the first of all, the table here. And in the table, I have patient information. So I'll put the patient ID, legal first name, legal last name, birth date, and SSN. Okay. You can format now in the table control. This is my header information, and you can format it just like any normal text. And I can go ahead and make sure I have the proper naming. You can expand, collapse the expand the columns. This is first name. This is last name. And so birth date I can say DOB, and this is the social security number. So these are headers. Okay, so these are in the actual. So first column in the table. So let me drag and drop another table here. So the first column, this one is a header, and the second column is the actual data. So these are the actual fields that you need to be linking. So when it runs, it displays all kind of reports here. So let's go ahead and run this report now, like in the preview, so that we can see it, how the data is being displayed. So at this point, I have my report. And now if I don't want this date, then with the timestamp, then I can go and select this box, right click on it, go to text box properties, and select the number and date format. And let's say I want this date format. So I can go in, or let's put the birth date here so it makes more sense. And if I run it again, my dates are formatted properly here. Now, this particular report displays all the patient, but what if I want to add a filter? So this is the filter we are talking about. So we have so far data sources, data set, report items, and one of the report item we used is a table, tablings. So, and that's how we are displaying the data using the tablets for our report. So what if we want to show the information for single patient? So meaning that if I want to filter the data, uh, so I need to ask the user for input what patient they want to see the data for. So let's say I want to add a filter for patient ID, so that only Eric's or whatever a patient ID I input in the filter, only that record is displayed. So you can add a filter very easily. Make sure you are when you are design mode. So you click on the design and then go to the field parameters and say add parameter. And here you can name it anything you like, but I'm giving it name as patient ID. Prompt is nothing but providing the instruction to the user. Here you can say anything. Please enter patient ID, something like that. Now data type needs to be whatever the type of the filter that you are creating for. So here patient ID is a number that we know. So we need to create the data type of this parameter as an integer and click OK for now. Now if I run this report and let's say I go ahead and enter 1002, I'm expecting to see 1002 record only. But again, I'm seeing everybody. So one thing I have not done is I have not hooked up the parameter I created with the actual field for filtering. So I need to go to the data set, go to the filters, click on add, and select the field that I want to apply the filter on, the parameter on, parameter filtering. So here I have all the fields that are in my data set. And so I'll select the patient ID because I want whatever user enters 1002, I need to apply the filter to this field. And second thing, I need to specify the parameter. So for that, I'll click on the function. And in this window that pops up, I'll go to the parameters and I see the patient ID parameter here. So I'll double click there and it will put the value here. Okay. At this point, I can click OK. And I just created a filter. I just linked the parameter that we have with the data set for filtering. So I'll go ahead and click OK for now. And let me go ahead and preview again. And at this point, I'll go and enter 1002. And now I'm able to retrieve only 1002 record. So if I do 1003, same way, I'm able to retrieve 1003 record. So going back here, so we configured a data source, we configured data set, we created a report using the table, and then we apply the filtering. And we did some type of expression as part of the filtering process. Function, that window is expressions window. And so you can, we utilize the expressions window for applying the filter. So at this point, our first report is created. Make sure you save the report. And now we did talk about the parent-child relationship in the session. What it is we have single patient, but we have multiple insurance or multiple major illnesses, and so you have to establish the parent-child relationship here. So assume that you are creating a major illness listing similar to what we did here. So what it means by that, I have major illness information, and I want to show only for the specific patient here. So how do I do that? So in order to do that, you have to create a major illness report first. In the second step, you have to, so let me go here. So parent-child relationship in a report, right? So in this one, first of all, you create a parent report. In our case, it is a patient information .rdl, which contains patient information data. Now, in order to establish the parent-child report, you have to first create a child report, just like parent you created, just like you created parent report. So what it means, um, for in our example, create major illness report, then add parameter as patient ID, right? For filtering, data filtering, because we want to show only for that patient, right? So we'll create this too. And the last step would be to link child with parent using sub-report in a parent report in a parent. So we did this part. Now let's work on this one. So we'll focus on that. So let me go and add a brand new report. So I'm going to select reports folder again and go back to right click on it, add new item, again report, and at this point I will name it as major illness. Okay. So again, this is a brand new report. This is a major illness report. So let me close out this patient information report. So now here our cycle starts again. You have to repeat the same process that we did for the patient information. Establish data source, data set, report items, and any filter. Okay. So first of all, data source. I'll go and add data source, and you can change the name or leave it same. But go and click on edit. Again, localhost. Windows authentication is selected, and here our database is patient registration. Let's click OK. Click OK. Our data source is established. Now our query, and again you have the data set, and select the user data set embedded in my report. Specify data source for the data set, and then write your query. And in our case, it will be select star from major illness. Okay. Refresh fields, and it says it's not able to connect. So again, seems like our data source has an issue. So I'll go back, cancel out, and see if I'm able to connect. So somehow it keeps changing on my machine to SQL Server authentication. So on your machine, you may not have this issue. So as long as your data source is configured properly, you're good. Okay, so now I just reconfigured my data source, and I'm going back to the data set. So right click on data set, add data set, and use data set in embedded data source 1. And let's write our query again. Okay, and click OK. All right, so we are good. We have all the fields that we need, including patient ID and other things. So at this point, the only thing I have to do is add the controls. And here, I'll go and add a table here. So it's a parent-child. So one patient can have multiple major illnesses. So, right. So you have, on this report, I just want to show illness type, current, past, and NA. Okay. You can expand, collapse this report area as you need, but let's see if I can preview it. So my report runs fine. I can see all the data here. Now again, I have not applied any filtering yet because I want to see only for a single patient. So here we have to apply the same filtering, which is the patient ID. So I'll repeat the steps here. Right click, add parameter, and let's say we call it this time is ID or patient ID, whatever you name it. So let's just put ID, enter patient ID, data type is integer, click OK. So second step in the filtering process is, now after you create a parameter, you need to hook up with the query. So I'll open this data set here, go to the filters, click on add, select the field you want to apply filter on or parameter on, patient ID function, parameters, and you will see the parameter that we just created as ID. So double click there, click OK, click OK. So now if I go back here and apply 1002, I should see only 1002, which is other end true. If I see 1005, I should see 3. Okay. So at this point, my report is created, child report, right? So this is child report. This is a parent report. Now, how do we create a link between parent and child, right? So we have to use the sub report in a parent. So I'll close out this report here. Okay. So at this point, I'll go back and open my parent report, which is patient information. Okay. Now, I'll go back to the toolbox and I'll find the sub report item, drag and drop. Okay. And make sure you align something like this. Now, I need to go to the properties. So I'll right click on the sub report properties. And here it says use this report as a sub report. So this is our child report. This is where you specify what child report needs to be displayed here. So here I can select major illness because that is our child report. And the second thing is major illness expects the report parameter, right? So think through here. So you also have a parameter here, patient ID, right? So sub report. So first of all, drag and drop sub report on parent, select child report, right? So we specify major illness. In our, this one is patient information, right? So we did that step. Now the third step is very important. And so the patient ID parameter in the parent report, you need to link to child report parameter. Okay. So what it means is that, so here major illness, we all know that it expects parameter, right, for the filtering. So how do we specify that? So we have to go to the sub report properties again, right? That's where we are, and I'll click on the parameters. I'll click on add, and here you should see the parameter ID, which is of the child report, and here you can see the value. This is coming from the parent report. So the patient ID, you can select the patient ID dot value. This is how you can link up. So whatever the value of patient ID is in the parent report, that will be passed to the parameter of the child report. And so I can click OK. And let's see if I can preview it this time. And if I do 1005, and now I linked up my parent and I just created parent and child relationship with the illness type. Okay, so let's go back to the step here. How do we do the parent child? You create a parent report first with whatever patient ID parameter or and containing the patient information, then added the parameter filter, right? So you have to do that. You create a child report just like you create a parent report. Um, so you have to create from scratch child report from scratch. Create major illness in our case, and then add parameter patient ID filtering, and then you link child with the parent using sub report in a parent. So you drag and drop sub report, select the child report major illness, and then second step would be patient ID parameter, link up the patient ID parameter um, in the child report with patient ID from parent table. So this is where we selected um, from the properties we selected in the parameters, this part, the parameters, that linkage. Okay. Um, okay, so the same way you can keep on adding more child reports like insurance and other reports and link up with the parent report. So that is your homework. So hopefully this video should help you follow the steps through and at least create a parent-child relationship and yeah, complete the report by adding insurance information as well as billing information at the bottom. Okay, uh, we can work them through on Wednesday lab. Hopefully, you can work through at home meanwhile for this. Thank you.